Hi, I'm Rick Veenstra. I serve as Regional Executive for the Great Lakes region of the Reformed Church in America. And I've been working with other folks to develop leaders to start and strengthen churches for a number of years. We've been working on trying to move toward the fulfillment of the Great Commission in the midst of the North American church that has been in decline for over a half century. It's a big challenge. One of the challenges has to do with the tail wagging the dog. And I'm going to use as an illustration something from the family life, from parents and children. I happen to have a 4-year-old grandson and a 2-year-old granddaughter. And sometimes our little 4-year-old grandson will just come up to his little sister and he will just shove her down. And she hurts herself and she cries. And you know, when that happens, one of the mild-mannered parents, my daughter or my son-in-law, will swoop in, will pick up my grandson, will carry him away for a timeout because pushing his little sister down is not acceptable behavior in their family. If one of those parents did not swoop in and pick up my grandson, he would get the idea that pushing his little sister down is not that big a deal, that it is acceptable behavior, but it's not. If he were allowed to do that, it would be like the tail wagging the dog. As far as parents are concerned, this seems kind of obvious. You don't let a little boy push down his little sister. It's not right. But in the church, it seems like we don't quite get that. Because in the church, I've observed over lots and lots of years that the tail often wags the dog. For example, the least mature people emotionally or spiritually have their say and have their way. Or the most chronically anxious people in the congregation seem to have their say and have their way. And leaders seem to just sort of allow this to take place as though it's okay for the tail to wag the dog. It's okay for the least mature, for the most anxious to have their way, to have their say. I'll use as a final illustration about tail wagging the dog of a church that I worked with a long time ago. And the pastor was young, doing a pretty good job, functioning as a leader, as a young pastor. But there were 3 couples, 3 families that were very influential, that were undermining his leadership, saying and doing things with regard to him that undermined or sabotaged his work. And the leaders were really not doing anything about it. I was working with the Board of Elders and I asked if someone would be willing to confront those people about what they were saying and doing. And one of the elders, and then another one who was willing to pray alongside of him, not talk, but pray, which is good, one of them said he would confront each of those couples, which he did. In so doing, they became angry. They eventually left the church, but this young pastor's ministry, I believe, was saved for not only in that church, but the remainder of his life, because he was ready to quit because he didn't know how to handle it. He didn't have the support that he needed. So I drove through a snowstorm to say thank you to that Board of Elders, because their courage in having those difficult conversations and not allowing the tail to wag the dog made the difference for that pastor, for his leadership, for the rest of his ministry, and for the ongoing fruitfulness and life of that church. As far as Christian parents are concerned, it seems obvious that a little boy should not push down his little sister. It just doesn't seem right. We deal with it right away. The tail should not wag the dog. In the church, the same is also true. We need leaders who are willing to be courageous and stand up to those who are undermining the mission, the vision, the values of the congregation. Thanks.